with the intent to help women who have been going through certain circumstances, including human trafficking, domestic violence, sexual assault, generally all of those kinds of things. And we're here today because we have filed, in October, we filed a lawsuit against the state of Maryland, Governor Wes Moore, and Dorothy Lessig, who is the executive director of the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy. So basically, the reason for that lawsuit is it's not just that the governor's office did not provide the funding as they're required to do under the Federal Victims of Crime Act. That's part of it. But the overall general problem that we've been having with GOCAP is a continued pattern of harassment, a continued pattern of basically trying to do everything in their power to not do their job. There is, on the table over there is a copy of a survey done by the Maryland Domestic Violence, what exactly is it?
MCASA, Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault.
Yes.
DVNSA.
Yes, and in the survey, it shows the pattern of basically the GOCAP, the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy, not doing their job, not being effective, not being, not giving the victims and not giving the service providers what they need to do, the nonprofits. And it's basically a pass-through entity, but they've made it so difficult. They've conducted so many audits. Ms. Gwines herself had to go through years of audit and micromanagement. And for example, one of the problems is we submitted a reimbursement for a professional development coach. But because it didn't say job coach, they denied the reimbursement. These are the kinds of things that the governor's office is doing. It's that micromanagement, that minutia, that incompetence, that ineffectiveness, which is the basis of the problem. Ms. Gwines noticed this. Ms. Gwines realized it. Ms. Gwines spoke out. As a result of Ms. Gwines speaking out against the governor in his office, then magically the funding was removed. And that is why we also included the First Amendment counts in our complaint. There is a copy of the complaint here, plenty of copies here, copies over there on the table as well. And so we're here because it's not just a matter of one entity, one action. It's a whole pattern. It's a whole promise. And somebody had to stand up. Somebody had to do what's right. And Ms. Gwines is the one who's doing what's right. And we're in this entity, we're in this space. Take a look around. It's fulfilled to help people and women who are in need and don't even and can't even necessarily ask for help. And that's also part of the mission of HER, is to help those that can't even ask for their own help. Over there on the wall is a map, and that map shows HER's target areas. It shows what the city needs help with, where the city needs help with, where there is survival sex, where there is human trafficking, where there is drugs, fentanyl abuse. And the women aren't going to come here. They're not going to come and seek out help. One of the great things about HER is that they go out. They do street targeting. They go out and help people help themselves. That is something that most entities and most organizations don't do. But Ms. Gwines has her own history and knows what people need. And that's why it's so important to support organizations like HER and support survivor-led organizations, because they know what the women need. And that is why we're here. That's why we're filing this lawsuit. That's why we're trying to get going. Now, again, the lawsuit was filed in October. We're serving it this week. And the reason we thought, we filed a lawsuit, everything would come to a head. We wouldn't do that. But now it's become apparent that the governor's office has not reached out. They have not cared. They're not doing anything because it didn't actually affect them, which is why we're here today having a press conference, we need to make everyone aware of what's going on. And that is where everyone who's out there can help. HER had to cease operations because they did not have the funding. We also need funding. Anyone who can reach out and help with the funding is going to be greatly appreciated. Just looking around this space with the classrooms and the work centers and teaching the women how to become plumbers, how to become carpenters, how to get into the trades, how to do the things that they need to do, how to become OSHA certified. Those are the things that can help women and help people who are survivors in their next step. And that is what HER is seeking to do. We have one of the participants in the program, Ms. Johnson, is at the table with us today. And so that's basically what we're looking to do. Ms. Johnson, how has the program helped you?
This program has helped me a lot.
And what has it taught you?
How to become an electrician.
And in what way has becoming an electrician been different than where you were before?
A lot of different stability. I've never had a job where I could reach back out to the person who actually helped me get that job, and if my life was actually hard outside of just working, I had someone to talk to with her. Like, she didn't just teach me these things and then leave me by myself. Like, she taught me these things and she still stood by me as someone that I could contact and look up to and reach out to for anything that I needed.
And Ms. Quines, what is HER's mission?
Hey, everybody. HER's mission is to support young women 18 to 25 overcoming various forms of hardship, only asking that they want and need our support, recognizing they may need it before they want it. And we're about building real relationships, knowing that we have to carry more of the relationship initially to build trust and to build buy-in. And, I do want to elaborate on something you said. Like, not all the women we serve don't have the same backgrounds. As mentioned, this is a survivor-led nonprofit, means I come with my own background. And while our stories are never the same, we identify in on the factors that allows us to find the hope and give it a chance. And so while some have been experienced human trafficking, sex trafficking, survival sex, domestic violence, our stories are not the same, and at the root of it is complex trauma more than anything. And so that's our mission at HER, and making sure that doing everything we can to help women exit the social service system, because it's a trap. And for example, like our workforce development program, the Triple Crown Academy, which we have here at this location, is to help women enter the construction trades through an 8-week general construction pre-apprenticeship and then to union apprenticeship programs. And you can finish a 4-year apprenticeship program, such as Janice, who is with the electricians, IBW, making $100,000 a year. That's not just a part-time job. That's a career path, and it allows the women we serve to be able to have their own chance at a real livelihood and not have to live in survival where they have to make a decision between where they can take time off for themselves or even take a vacation, but to have a real life and journey forward. I think I captured that well.
And as you can see by this space, Natasha and HER have been very successful and you heard Ms. Johnson's story. They've been very successful at that. And we just want the roadblocks to stop. That's really what it comes down to. There was a very long audit that took so much of time and energy that wasn't designed to benefit anyone. It's just bureaucratic nonsense and inefficiency in how it was run. And then once the bureaucratic nonsense was brought to the attention, Facebook posts, things like that, that's when it became almost personal. And we have statements from members of the administration calling out how personal it was. So to say that it's just, at a certain point, how it's done, well, it's both. It's both personal and how it's done because of the inefficiency of this administration. And that's why we have to bring the lawsuit. We were, in fact, I'm not going to mention names, but there are certain high-level legislators who said that we didn't really have a chance or choice to do anything but file this lawsuit because we weren't going to get anywhere else. So that's why we're here today, and that's what we're looking to do. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Who are your partners in the Triple Crown Academy?
You can take that. So we have partnered with 10 different labor unions, including the electricians, the carpenters, the plumbers, operating engineers, Home Depot, Milwaukee. They helped us build out this location. Home Depot paid for the build out, in fact, and we had a great day of about 80 volunteers coming in and helping us put it together. That leads me to also want to clarify something Timothy said, is that the money, the contract wasn't just gone. It's that we had a contract that they kept changing the parameters on. And we had a contract with GoCap where the way it's set up for many nonprofits is you have to spend the money and then you get the money. We spent the money in good faith, providing services, like Timothy said, having a job coach, that's what we applied for, but to ensure the professional, just really wanting to make it as professional as possible, decided to call the job coach a professional development coach, as was shared. And they didn't reimburse us for that money. And so in FY25, in fact, they didn't reimburse us $218,000. So it's not that we don't have contracts or other government agencies wanting to fund us. It's just that we don't have the money that's owed to us to be able to continue to operate those other contracts, in fact. And in 2024, they didn't reimburse us $74,000, very much the same. And when reviewing our invoices and financial reports submitted, they would say that's not what a victim needs very often, and denying the invoice.
And that's part of the problem is that they think that they know better. And it's been proven that they don't. And that's the benefit, that's the whole benefit of an organization like HER. Because HER goes out into the community. HER is doing the street outreach. HER knows what the women need. And for the administration to say, oh, we're not going to reimburse that because the women didn't need that, makes zero sense. It doesn't follow the guidelines as provided by the Victims of Crime Act. And at a certain point, it is intentional, and it's just mismanagement. Again, this is a pattern of this administration, is mismanagement in these agencies. And as the survey on the table shows, there is a consistent pattern of mismanagement. And this is not just about HER, it's about the entire administration. But we need to continue helping HER and have HER helping the people that it helps.
Ben?
You touched on this a little bit, but that 218,000, could you just elaborate a little more on what those expenses were?
They did not, so one of the things, it's complicated, we'd be happy to talk further about it, is at the beginning of FY25, they informed us, different than other fiscal years to which we've been funded by them for 5 years, that not everybody we served was a victim. And they pointed specifically to street outreach, saying that the women on the streets we serve are not victims. Women being beaten with crowbars, women being gang trafficked here in the city, name it, every one of them. And I was hoping that another woman who had come through the program was going to be able to make it today, and I would love to share about her in a minute. Locked in a basement by a John for a week, stripped of her clothes, told she wasn't pretty enough for the handcuffs, and had to escape through a mid-level window. And, but they're not victims. And in that, they told us that I bill staff across the board at 45%. I couldn't have any staff at 100% paid by them. In doing this, they included me in that, my time. And because I couldn't afford to fill all these positions, I had to do a lot more program work. And when I submitted invoices the first 6 months for my time at 45%, this is just one example, they approved them. From January to July, they told me that I'm not approved at that amount, and they denied all 6 months. They also denied, and they only paid for salary in FY25. Again, the job coach, professional development coach, they didn't approve any of our expense reports from January 2025 to June 30th, 2025. We had submitted budget modifications 8 times. Actually, it started submitting the budget modification, moving money around in line items in February, and they didn't deny it until May of 2025, 1 month before the grant ended. And this is you'll see in the survey, that's very common, the denial of budget modifications for all of us, which makes it, not only it makes it hard for us to spend the money, and spend the money mindfully, because every time you submit a budget modification, they take 2 weeks to respond, to say, fix this one line. You have to redo the whole budget again, because you can't spend the money before you get the money, or before they approve it. So every time you're doing it, you're having to update it in real time. That may be too much detail there, but that's what happened in 2025. In 2024, it was a lot of contractual changes. For example, they had approved $30,000 in our budget for program participants who struggle to have groceries. Part of our model is to build rapport with the women. That means having meals with them. Who doesn't talk over a meal? And 6 months into the contract, which they hadn't paid any invoices, even though they'd been submitted, told me that food isn't covered. And food had been covered the other 3 years. And it had been signed. They authorized it, signed it, and then told me to find a different funder to pay for it. It's stuff like that. So it's not just, and for example, and the salaries as well. Like, it's just, they don't like it. They tell you that they're just not, and I've asked multiple times over the 2 fiscal years for it to be reviewed by somebody else, and the answer is just no. And learning and coming to terms with, there is no oversight over the agency outside of the executive director who makes the final decisions. Yes, Ian?
What kind of questions do you think lawmakers should be asking the administration about GOCAP during the legislative session?
Well, we had already learned, because we had been working with lobbyists, that as well, that there was a specific delegate who was going to be getting more into GOCAP from the safety committee. Unfortunately, he has left and gone to another system, another entity, and so I don't know. But the questions are, and for us, and I don't know if you want to share in the discovery questions.
I mean, there's a difference between the discovery questions and the questions to be asked of GOCAP. The question to be asked of GOCAP is, are their actions really benefiting these nonprofits? And what is the purpose of their decision making? And is there a process of the decision making? How can, like Natasha said, how can you say it's approved 1 year and then say it's not approved the next year? How can you say that someone who has been locked in a basement is not a victim and not eligible for these funds when it's clear that they are? Who is actually making these decisions, and what oversight, one, does the executive director have? And 2, what oversight does the governor have? And so are we really making these decisions with the best interest of the state, with the best interest of the stakeholders? Those are the important questions. And then we have to do the other audit. And is there certain intentionality to it? Is there retaliation? Is there, because Natasha spoke out on Facebook and other there are these other organizations who are afraid to speak out because they're afraid that their funding will be cut. And so There have been several times we've contacted reporters. We had joint stories set up, and one of the other entities backed out. And so they didn't want to continue with the story because they were afraid of retaliation. So is this a pattern of retaliation against entities? That's another thing that lawmakers are going to have to look into.
I know Dorothy Lennig in the hearings last year over GOCAP, she was asked questions about how does the agency interact with vendors and grantees, and they asked question about audits, and her answers were, I don't know. And it's my understanding that they were giving until this year for her to come back with these answers. Yes, Gail?
We're in a budget crunch. Is this state money or federal money?
The Victims of Crime Act is a federal program to which the state also puts money towards the Victims of Crime Act state money. However, they are required to follow, for state and federal money, the federal guidelines.
So the federal money has already been given to the state? They
Yes.
just haven't allocated it out?
Yes.
Yes.
Owen?
Hi. Can you tell me or us a little bit about how the original source seed for funding got started, I believe around 10 years ago, and how that evolved or perhaps changed with administrations?
Yes, and actually I would like to share this because, and connect it even to this issue, is that, so I started HER in May 2015 in Washington, D.C. We opened with about $52,000 that came in $75 increments from friends from AA, and where I got sober at 21. And, you know, we started getting money in DC from the Office of Victim Services Justice Grants, which is the parallel DC program to GOCAP. And we got money there, some foundations. I was asked to expand to Baltimore under a former administration, and we started receiving GOCAP money in 2020. Right now, well, as we exist, we're in 2 cities, DC and Baltimore. In Baltimore, we're able, through DHCD, to purchase a building on Fleet Street. We've built assets. We've been able to bring in about $10 million in contracts over the 10 years. We have good partnerships with the other agencies, grant makers. How I just was wanting to point out, Owen, to your question, is that even last year having GOCAP money and OVSJG money, again, that's Office of Victim Services Justice Grants in DC, good partnership with OVSJG. And in fact, this year for FY26, when they funded us again or offered us a contract again, we had to turn it down because it's the same as all government agencies that requires you to spend the money to get the money. And we just didn't have the cash flow to be able to operate it effectively. So this is not just impacting here in Baltimore, it's impacting our entire, all of our services.
Yeah, could you elaborate more on the difference between your relationship with the DC Crime Prevention Office and GOCAP? You said it was a much better relationship, but because, did you say it was because of the funding breach of contract that you had to decline from?
Yes. And I can explain it a little bit better. First of all, OVSJG works in partnership with its grantees. There's another executive director that I talk to frequently who's also a GOCAP grantee who had started an organization in DC, and it was very much partnership. You need something, you call. You can set up a meeting. They actually return your communication. They want their grantees to be successful. In fact, they have they set up like a program to help organizations build capacity. That's operating money, fundraising money, to do what we need. Now, we received it for 2 years in a row in 23 and 24. It was only supposed to be for 1 year. So that's kind of how OVSJG works in partnership wanting us to see us be successful, while GoCap, and this really changed more with Dorothy Lenig upon Governor Moore taking office and as the executive director, is more, and you'll see in that survey, works from a punitive mindset. Someone else put that in there, has a gotcha attitude, looking for its grantees to fail and finding ways not to have to meet the standard, but also finding ways not to have to pay us. And that is written, so the survey that's provided, 52 GoCap grantees filled it out and submitted it anonymously. Well, MCASA probably has the information, but we don't. And we helped circulate the questions, though, and to find similar language all the way through it, it's just astonishing. You have anything else?
I mean, at this point, that's kind of where we are, and we want to bring the attention to this fight, and this is where it needs to be. The legislative session is going into session. Legislature is going into session this week. That's part of the reason that we're doing it this week, is that we want to bring the attention because this needs to be a priority issue. The administration does not seem to know what it's doing in terms of these organizations. It does not seem to know what it's doing in terms of running the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy. And as Natasha said, there are ways to do this. DC is doing it. The previous administration did it. Now, for speaking out, there's retaliation, and that is what needs to happen. And we need as much help as we can get in this fight, because this is not just about one organization. This is about the people that organization serves, and this is about the people that other organizations serve as well. So that's why we're here today, and that's what we're looking to do.
And I would like to share something is that, being able to serve the women we serve is a gift. It's a gift that they trust us. It's a gift that we get to be a part of their lives. It's a gift that we get to watch them grow. And we also grow as an organization through this. And as their lives change, it doesn't just impact their individual lives. It impacts their children. It stops intergenerational cycles. But it also impacts our community. We were asked to go to Park Heights for street outreach in 2021, where we've helped a number of women get off the streets, go to treatment, and never go back. And it's been incredible to see their journey. But, the pastor who asked me specifically to do street outreach in Park Heights came back and has said multiple times, we see less needles on the ground. The community feels safer. Just because we were disrupting, if nothing else, we were disrupting the behavior over there with drugs, with the Johns, and while also helping the women get off the street. And when individuals and those we serve, particularly, leave survival, end up making, even now earning a good wage, especially through the Triple Crown Academy, and then when they finish making $100,000 a year, that's not paying attention by the administration to them actually being part of making up the shortfall in our state. Tax-paying citizens, members who are in our community that are thriving, not needing to take or receive as many social service benefits because they're actually able to do it themselves. And, this is particularly important for me because people did it for me. When I entered the program of Alcoholics Anonymous at 21 years old, I had been selling my body, I was homeless, and they helped me do exactly the things that we do at HER Resiliency Center now. And we want to be able to continue that work and be able to build peer relationships with the women we serve and not work in a way of client-clinician, because honestly, they know what they need as well, just like we are being able to put out what we know. Thank you.